Welcome back to ThinkTech. This is ThinkTech Tech Talks. Today we're talking about Oceanit's Blast Ninja, the technology which was acquired by Kennametal. We want to know more about that. We want to know more about Oceanit. Oceanit has now another high-tech product it has developed and commercialized. Welcome to the show, Jay. Thank you for coming down.
Thanks for having me on, Jay. Happy to be here.
So, every time I look, you guys are doing something to fill a national or international void on technology, and you do it right here, on 4th Street. It's quite extraordinary. And I want to hear more about that because you guys are alive and well. You must be 40 years already from the time Pat Sullivan set up the company.
Yeah, we're getting close. I think we're probably at the 38-year mark now at this point, founded and still headquartered in Honolulu. But yeah, I think Pat Sullivan founded the company on the basis that innovation can be done from anywhere. And we like to take the line of delivering technology from Hawaii to the world. And that's been a big fundamental underlying movement for us throughout the history of Oceanit. And Blast Ninja, while it's kind of a niche sort of product or technology, if you will, it's been another proof point that we really can do disruptive innovation from Hawaii.
Who thought that name up? Is that yours? Blast Ninja? It sounds like a social media game. Oh, there's a picture.
Yeah.
There we go.
So yeah, Blast Ninja, I think somebody in our commercialization team came up with the name and my marketing team came up with the branding. So big shout out to the team who came up with that. It's kind of funny because it's an abrasive blast nozzle, a sand blasting nozzle at the end of the day. It's not necessarily a very cool or particularly innovative industry, but it's everywhere. And when we set out to kind of commercialize this technology that we knew was really good, we decided to really lean into an area that this particular industry had never been in, which is kind of having fun with it, being on social media, doing more kind of, I guess you could say, modern marketing for it as we developed the nozzle and the branding that went along with it. And it really got people's attention because this is kind of a technology that has not really changed in decades. The blast nozzle, but we wanted to come in with something that was revolutionary, not just in the function of it, but the form and the look and the feel of it as well.
I want to explore with you exactly what those objects do in terms of dealing with the blasting process. They look like extended shotgun shells, but there's got to be something else there.
Yeah,
what is that? What are those things, and why are they different sizes?
So abrasive blasting or sandblasting is basically a process that people use to strip paint or strip coatings or clean corrosion and rust off of parts or vehicles or aircraft. It's been around forever. It's basically pressurized air is pushed through a hose and mixed with an abrasive like sand or grit, and it blasts it out in a stream that comes out of this nozzle. And it basically strips away whatever it is that you're aiming at, the paint or the corrosion on, let's say, a car door or on a engine block or something like that. And the nozzle itself is kind of slung over the operator's shoulder, and it's extremely loud, a very, very, very loud process. And it was basically a problem that originated from the military. Both the Air Force and the Navy have blasters that are working in aircraft facilities and shipyards, like here in Pearl Harbor or in Norfolk, Virginia. And hearing damage or hearing loss over an operator's life is significant. It's a more than $1 billion problem annually that the military has to deal with in terms of disability benefits and things like that. So it's a big issue for them. And it's something where we thought we can come in and kind of add this disruptive innovation that Oceanit is known for to something as simple and humble as the nozzle that is at the end of this pressurized air hose. And so Blast Ninja was our effort to reduce the noise output that would protect the operator and also protect the people around the operator who might not be blasting but are on the same construction site, and basically enable them to be productive in what they need to do while being safe.
Why different sizes?
So in the blast industry, you have a whole bunch of different types of nozzles. That's our full range that we've developed there. But basically, they're for different pressures of air, different types of grit or sand that you use, different blast patterns as well. There's a whole lot of kind of nuance that goes into sandblasting. But fundamentally, we wanted to create something that was basically plug and play with the systems that all these guys use. We didn't want them to have to reinvent every part of the blasting process in order to just make it quieter. We realized that with the research we had done into, believe it or not, jet engine noise pollution, we could apply that to just the nozzle, revolutionize that one part to protect these guys, while letting them still have all the same plug and play types of capabilities with the different sizes of nozzles and the different types of abrasives they might use.
And why some red, some black? There was a great novel back in the early part of the 19th century called The Red and the Black. And it was by a French author called Stendhal. But I don't think it has anything to do with that novel, does it? Why the difference between the red and the black?
Well, the different lines that we showed on the screen just a second ago are different constructions. So different types of jackets on the exterior for grip, different types of connections to the hoses. As you can see, some have kind of a wider base. Some of them have different materials on the inside as well that prolongs the lifespan or is fit for a certain type of application or a certain type of blasting. And so we found in the research, to commercialize a product, especially in an industry that we didn't know anything about going into this project, we had to work with and talk to a lot of industry experts, and they were eager to kind of make improvements in their own industry. And they helped us decide on these different types of sizes and these different types of functions or forms that would help them do the job that they do day in and day out.
And so what's the secret sauce? And I don't mean the sauce for the McDonald's hamburger. I mean, you must have some kind of intellectual property protection, some kind around that nozzle. Can you give us further detail on that? And can you tell us whether it's protected by patent and so forth?
Yeah, so it is protected by patent, but it was developed and designed here in Hawaii at Oceanit, and it's basically a function of the internal geometries and materials that are used. At the end of the day, without getting too technical, what's happening is we're preserving the speed of the abrasive that leaves the nozzle while reducing the air velocity. So that reduces the noise. It's kind of like if you try to blow into a trumpet. If you're not making a good seal on the trumpet, you're going to be leaking air everywhere, and that air is noisy. So the internal geometries basically help us maintain the productivity of the nozzle while reducing that air velocity and the sound or the noise that's created by that.
Brilliant. Why am I reminded of Ian Kitajima and design thinking out of Stanford? Because I would like to examine with you exactly how this came about within your development process. Because somebody had to bring it to your attention, and then you had to test back and forth to see what they really wanted out of you, and use the principles of design thinking out of Stanford, and then ultimately come up with something that was a solution to the problem that you identified in the course of your examination. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that actually leads me to a really interesting kind of like origin story of this project. So Ian and the whole team really have been practicing design thinking for years and years now. But the original, I guess, seedling idea of this project came from the Air Force, and it was about reducing noise inside blasting booths, which are basically like contained chambers where an individual blast operator goes in, he's by himself, he's kind of isolated from the rest of the world, and he's just blasting away in there by himself. But what we found as we started working on that project for the Air Force is that not all blasting happens in these booths. It can happen in the open air. It can happen in shipyards inside of vehicles or ships. And so there's often not a booth literally to block the noise from the people around the blaster, let alone the blaster's own hearing being damaged. So we actually realized through the principles of design thinking that we were probably solving the wrong problem, that we needed to reduce the noise coming from the nozzle, not the noise inside the booth, or not making the booth more soundproof. And so we went back to the Air Force and to the Navy and basically convinced them that, hey, you were heading in the right direction trying to solve the hearing loss problem. But we think that this is a more interesting way of approaching that, where we can basically protect all the blasters and all the people around them that are working on whatever their job is. And so we pivoted away from the original kind of seed idea and started down this path to the nozzle that we have today. And, the Navy has been really supportive of us all the way through, as has the Air Force. And a big, I think, push that you see from the DoD and also from the federal government in general is that they want to help commercialize these technologies now. And so they really wanted us to get these in the hands of operators in the private sector and industrial sectors that are using these just as much as their shipbuilders and their shipyard guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no need to be proprietary about it. It's just a sort of a contribution to the whole process. And query, is this dual use technology where they help you develop it and then you both have rights in it? Can you talk about that?
So this is, basically it comes from the seed funding of the idea came from the Small Business Innovation Research Program, the SBIR program, or SBIR. And we moved it through several phases of that with their support. And so they have a stake in getting that technology into the hands of their guys as well. And then Oceanit also invested significantly ourselves on our side, believing in the technology and knowing that it was solving a broader problem for the private sector. And so we made a lot of investments in moving this through and commercializing the project. The commercialization team that's headed up by Matthew Sullivan did a great job of going out to the private sector and getting a sense of what they needed and wanted. Maybe if they didn't even know that they needed it or wanted it, and created those types of relationships that could help us get it to market. But yeah, the DoD interest in it is still extremely high as well.
Sure, it's great to hear that, there's a market outside the military. So let's talk about that. It seems to me, and I'm making a wild speculative guess here, it seems to me that blasting and repainting, marine equipment and other equipment that may have corroded over the years for one environment or another is probably increasing in the world today. And therefore, the need for blasting in preparation for repainting is probably increasing too. So it's not just the military, although, surely this helps the military keep its equipment in good shape. But it's, the marine industry in general. It's anything built out of, say, steel, or like metals, which is subject to corrosion in or around the ocean. And therefore, it seems to me, my wild speculative guess is that the market, the demand for this kind of technology is increasing, or at least that's the way you see it. And I'd like to know your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is. You could maybe, I guess, compare it to not quite as sexy as the rise of the automobile, but there are just more people with more vehicles, and there's more need for maintaining those vehicles, keeping them running or restoring them. And so, yeah, the blasting industry has kind of been there for quite a long time, multiple, over 100 years probably in one way or another, and is just growing. So like I said earlier, there wasn't a ton of innovation in it, though. It had been this way and done this way for decades. But what we found as we went out there is that there was an appetite as well for private sector to protect their guys, to prevent injuries and be productive. They're getting more and more jobs. There's a whole industry of mobile blasting as well, where they'll come out to your property and blast your vehicle or your boat or whatever it might be. And so, yeah, the industry is really growing. I think the commercialization team at Oceanit did a really great job. We call it from mind to market. They're the guys that take it from the fundamental science and the engineers doing the stuff in the laboratory and developing the prototypes, and then getting it into the hands of these private sector guys who are actually using it and reaping the benefits of it. By the time we'll maybe talk about this in a minute, but by the time it was acquired by Kennametal, we had already distributed the Blast Ninja nozzles to, I think, 3 continents, between 15 and 20 different countries. So this was everywhere. This is a problem for everybody who does blasting. And yeah, the industry is just growing, even though it may not be something that people really know too much about.
Who's the competition? What's the competition like? Do they have patented noise suppressors?
So there are a few competitors in the marketplace, ones that are not necessarily taking the exact same type of approach. I think the biggest thing that Blast Ninja brings is the plug and play style. It's that it's just that nozzle. It fits with your equipment you already have, and it's just ready to go. There are competitors out there that make noise dampening nozzles, but they're these kind of unwieldy systems that you have to, multiple parts that you have to put on or change out in your setup. And so as a blast operator, one of the main things we heard is that, I don't want extra hassle to do my job, like I'll just get on with it. But if you have something that's easy that I can just go bunk and I'm ready to blast, then I'll use it. And I think that's why it had such an uptake when we took it out to different private sector customers and partners, that it's so simple to use with what they've got already.
So you sold it. I don't know with the extent of, the bundle of rights. I'd like to know about that. To a New York Stock Exchange company, which I guess is into, well, tell me what it's into. This is the stock symbol at KMT. It's a Kennametal. I don't know if that's the full corporate name, but that's an industrial equipment company, and it must be global. It must be global from what you've said. Can you talk about that transaction and what passed hands in that transaction?
Sure. I mean, this was kind of a long process. We were fortunate that early on, as we were gaining some notoriety, they actually reached out to us. They actually reached out to our commercialization team and were asking about what we were doing and how they could potentially partner with us. And we said, we're not quite ready yet. We're still working on these different things, but a few years later, we got back in touch and said, "Hey guys, we're ready for prime time now, and we want to figure out how to work together." But yeah, Kennametal is based in Pennsylvania. They're a massive company in the industrial tooling and metallurgy kind of area. They've been around, I think, for nearly 100 years. Did a lot of things during World War II and kind of built up their portfolio of tooling and industrial types of equipment, particularly in a interesting metallurgical area called tungsten carbide alloys. That made them the perfect partner for us to work with. And we started, working on different pilot runs with them. And then eventually they said, we love the Blast Ninja. We want to acquire it to have it in our portfolio and be able to keep manufacturing in the US. And so now they are the go-to for all the Blast Ninja nozzles. They distribute them around the world in far greater numbers than Oceanit ever could. I think getting back to the mind to market aspect of it is we kind of take things from the lab to pilot scale to deployment. And then, we're not going to be necessarily in the business of being nozzle manufacturers, but Kennametal is a huge company. They do all of their stuff in the US, and we felt good about giving them the rights to represent Blast Ninja and market it and add to their portfolio of customers who all kind of have this demand for Blast Ninja now.
So they're a tool and die company. This is really important. Did I hear you say that they are actually manufacturing the devices?
Yeah, so they're now manufacturing them. They're keeping the manufacturing in the US. But yeah, distributing them worldwide to their kind of portfolio of customers. They have an incredible reach. And so that combined with their expertise in the types of materials and alloys made them the perfect partners for us to really bring these kinds of things to the world. But yeah, they do a lot of stuff, like everything from drill bits and dies and valves to, I think aircraft and snowplow and automotive parts. So they do a whole lot of different stuff in the kind of tooling industry.
Yeah, Joe Biden must be ecstatic about this. He must be ecstatic about, your development and also the transaction with Kennametal, because tool and die is the backbone of American manufacturing. There you have it. You're really connected on this one. It sounds like a great deal. So, congratulations to Oceanit for, seeing the problem, revising the problem with design thinking, and ultimately satisfying the military, and now selling its rights to Kennametal. What's the residual though, Jay? What happens after the deal? Do you have anything left? Are you still going to be marketing it? You have some sort of partnership going forward?
I actually don't know the finer details of that aspect of it. All I do know is that they will give it far greater legs than we ever could. Mm-hmm. Ideally, we would love to have a diverse enough economy in Hawaii that we could do more, or I guess greater volumes of what we do here. And I'd say it's always been the dream of Patrick Sullivan, the CEO, to have more that can be carried forward here from Hawaii and have the political will to stand behind this kind of innovation. And we're making progress, certainly, in that area. But at the end of the day, Oceanit, we're involved in so many different things that we really see this kind of cycle of technology development. This is one of our endpoints, right? Whether it ends in a spin out company from Oceanit or a licensing deal or an acquisition, we really want to get to the point where we have the attention of the industry leaders in whatever industry it might be, and they're excited enough about our technology that we've been excited for years, that they would pick it up and run with it from there. If Oceanit were to be doing all sorts of manufacturing here in Hawaii, we would be doing everything from, rapid COVID-19 tests to blast nozzles to aircraft coatings to, all sorts of different things. It would be just, I think it would get out of hand really quickly. So it's important for us to find these paths to partner with industry leaders in whatever sector it might be.
Yeah, and your strength, as I recall, is that you have a kind of open creativity within the company. And so management will say, hey, you guys, think of something good and we'll support you in your research. And then you hire a lot of scientists who do that. And you give them the tools to do it. And before you know it, they come up with things that really surprise you because they have this kind of open creative possibility. Am I right? Is it still like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a saying internally that we won't give you a ladder to climb, but we'll give you the tools and you can build whatever type of ladder you want to climb. But Blast Ninja is a perfect example, right? Like the initial underlying research to that was from our aerospace engineers. And it's not like we have a team or a room of aerospace engineers that just sit and think about aerospace ideas, but they had been doing research in fighter jet engine noise reduction. As you might know, like supersonic flight is not allowed over land, over populated areas for good reason. But we had experts that were looking at how can you, through the design or the shape, the geometries of jet engines, reduce that kind of noise. And when this need from the Air Force came up initially, we started thinking, well, hey, maybe we have a match here. Maybe we have some fundamental research from left field that is applicable to this 100-year-old industry that hasn't seen a lot of innovation. And maybe we can fuse the two and solve everybody's problem all at once. And I think you see those types of stories repeating over and over again at Oceanit. One of our recent things, not to go too off topic, was we had FDA emergency use authorization for a rapid COVID-19 test called a SURE 100.
About that. It's not off topic at all. So talk
Okay.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that research started with a DARPA-funded project, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, into cancer genomics. And we were doing this type of genetic research on cancers. And when the pandemic came along, we shifted that research. We pivoted, I guess, that underlying fundamental science to look at the genomic code of the COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 and develop the test. And you can see this kind of thing repeating across Oceanit, where we find these kind of connections that are seemingly out of left field that others may not have made, because maybe you work for a tooling company and you're just so deep into tooling that there's not that same level of creativity or innovation. And that's what Oceanit brings, I think, across any industry, is we find these areas where disruptive innovation is possible because of research that we've done in something that's seemingly unrelated.
So what's in the pipeline now, to the extent you can talk about it? What's the next miraculous product that we should expect to hear from you about, Jay?
A really interesting one that we've been working on recently is liquid cooling garments for the Army, particularly for their air warriors, which are their helicopter pilots, and for DETRA, which is basically like the bomb squad kind of guys. And they operate in extremely hot environments and need liquid cooling garments to help them stay cool. We're looking at working with some companies in the consumer space to fuse that technology developed for helicopter pilots with kind of folding chairs and things like that, so you can stay cool while you're watching your kid's soccer game or out on the beach. So again, a connection that only Oceanit could maybe draw. But yeah, personal cooling systems. That's a really interesting one for me in particular that we're working on right now.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, the modularity of it is clear. I mean, because you can use it in more ways than just a helicopter pilot. And the other aspect of it that comes to my mind anyway is we live in a time of climate change, and there will be places where it gets very hot. And to be productive, industrially productive in business context, you need to keep your body at a reasonable temperature, or you go foggy. I know on a hot day I go foggy. I think that's generally the case. So if you had a product that would deal with that heat, there's probably an increasing market for it going forward, like it or not, caused by climate change and the warming, right? This has got to be part of your marketing, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And funnily enough, there's a connection in that some of the guys we're starting to work with in testing these products outside of the Army Air Warriors is with the same guys in the shipyards that are down in the hulls of ships, blasting or working on electronic systems or things like that. And they have a need to stay cool in these tight, cramped, hot spaces. But you're right, with the climate changing, there's going to be a lot more uncomfortable outdoor activities that are potentially in need of some sort of personal cooling solution, just to make them remain viable in a warming climate. So yeah, it's definitely an opportunity for us.
Well, my reaction, I'm glad we connected, on this, on the Kennametal deal, and we had a chance to talk about these other products and your concepts within the company, because, I mean, you are a great example of Hawaii's ability to create, work together, find collaboration here and elsewhere, and think globally. It's really remarkable that we have you. And I've followed you since the 90s, and way back when. I don't want to go into detail because it's too much to go into detail. But the fact is that Hawaii should be proud of Oceanit. Oceanit has persisted and improved and increased its scope and its capacity and its product all of these years. So kudos to you guys on another great product, a great deal. Thank you very much, Jay.
I appreciate that. And thank you very much for having me on. Hopefully we'll have more technologies to talk about in the very near future here.
I look forward to that. Aloha, Jay.
Thank you so much for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.